in the Peacock and the Shakespeare, and today we're going to learn about British food because, goodness, your names can be confusing.
Quite confusing. So quite funny. I think British food has had sort of a bad rap over the years, and people tend to think of it as heavy and stodgy and greasy. But I mean, if you look at British food nowadays in London and surrounding London and the country areas as well, you just see that there's a lot more abundance of suppliers and small unique vendors that are, you know, be it a fisherman or a farmer or a butcher or a grocer. You know, the food availability has changed so much over the years.
So explain sort of the naming of classic British dishes.
Well, we've got a couple here. For example, this is called Bubble and Squeak. But this just came back from World War II era when, you know, everyone was on rations and there wasn't a lot of fresh fruit and vegetables available. So it's mainly comprised of cabbage and potatoes, where they would be, or you would take any leftovers you had. The name really comes from when you press it in the pan. It makes a sort of hissing, bubbling, squeaking noise. So that's where the name comes from. We've sort of refined it a little bit. We put a lot more different vegetables in it, parsnips and carrots.
It can be as fun as it sounds.
Yes, exactly.
What else do we have?
The other thing we have is shepherd's pie. I associate shepherds as being made with ground lamb. Just for, you know, you think of shepherds and you know, people herding the flock. Initially, it was generally just referred to as cottage pie. Farmers and the people working on the farm and the fields, that they would live in small cottages. Basically, it would be a cheap sort of meal for them, using up old roast joints of whatever they were cooking and potatoes. So it would be lined with cooked potato, and there'd be more potato on the top.
So it's comfort food. When you think of like shepherd's pie, it's like a comforting dish.
So we have our sarnie, or sandwich. I mean, sarnie is just, again, it's just a short term for sandwich, and it's just picked up over the years. And we have a couple here. This one is a grilled cheese sandwich, but we've done it with British cheeses, so it's got an English cheddar and an English Stilton through it as well.
And what about bangers and mash?
Bangers and mash. Yeah, so again, that's a very sort of classic sort of pub dish. The name banger, and it was in reference to when it was cooked. You know, back then, when again meat was scarce, they would put a lot of breadcrumb or whatever and water. So when you cook it, when you have fat and water mixed together, you know, you get a lot of hissing and spitting. And so that's why it's called bangers and mash, because it would, you know, they would make a lot of noise when they're cooking.
So really, you guys are just naming things after the noises that they make.
Yeah, a lot of noises, bubble and squeak and bangers. Yeah.
And then what about spotted dick? Because that's like
spotted dick,
little cheeky, as you say.
You know, people sometimes raise their eyebrows out a little bit. I mean, the spotted part of it, I mean, that's straightforward, obviously, because it's got all the dried fruits. As far as the dick part of it, I couldn't quite find out where that name. Maybe someone called Dick invented the pudding at some point. I'm not really sure where that came from.
And speaking of kind of desserts and sweet things, what about crumpets?
It's sort of changed over the years. Initially it was flat griddle cake, and then yeast was introduced into it, I think in the Victorian era. And now, even more, we put a little bit of baking powder in it as well, just to give it a little bit of more of a lighter texture. When the yeast is bubbling up and proofing, you get all these little holes coming through, and you know, it gives it a nice texture.
Do you think the sound goes crumpet like the rest of them?
No.
There's no sound related.
There's no real sort of noise. It's a silent. It's a silent crumpet. It's a silent crumpet. Yeah. And then we just do it with a honey, and then we make a lemon curd and raspberry jam and butter. So it's a real treat. You know, I'm here to try and give British food a good name instead of the bad rap it's had over the years.
Well, British food definitely has good names,
yes,
so thank you so much for explaining what the names actually mean and deciphering our British cuisine.
Sure.
Really appreciate it.